we're going to do another live Q&A. Before doing the Q&A, I do want to talk about something really interesting that recently has blown my mind. Story time. I have a very advanced level in French and Spanish. I have basically have the highest measurable level that you could have with the test that people tend to use to measure one's fluency level. Okay, and I've learned both languages for a very, very, very long time. And I took a vocabulary test. So I actually took one that I've designed, and I scored very high. No duh. I scored very high on my vocabulary test. But here's the thing. I added a part 2 to my vocabulary test. I added a part 2 that basically would show the difference between an advanced speaker and a native speaker. See, someone who's super advanced in French or English or Spanish or whatever, someone who's like really, 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 really advanced would obviously know lots of words. But I was curious to see, like, how does that compare to a native speaker, right? A university educated native speaker. How does that compare? And this is what blew my mind. When I was looking at the harder vocabulary test that I made, from what I can tell, it's approximately 50%. Approximately. So someone who's extremely advanced in another language, very advanced level, right? The highest that one could possibly measure with traditional testing, right? That person would know approximately, give or take, 50% roughly of the words that a university level educated native speaker would know. That was like mind blowing, blew my mind. I was like, wow, that is crazy stuff. I didn't know. I was like, oh my goodness. Made me want to go study French and Spanish again. I was like, oh my God, 50%, 60%, 70%. Like, that's not very good. Like, wow, I have a lot of work to do, which is wild. It's so crazy. You know, when you look at these, the CEFR, which maybe you've heard of, if you haven't, I'll tell you. The CEFR is one standard way to measure people's level. So there's 6 different levels, right? It goes from low beginner to high advanced. Low beginner, high beginner, low intermediate, high intermediate, low advanced, high advanced, right? So if you think about, oh, high advanced, wow, you're high advanced in French, you're high advanced in English and Spanish, whatever, you're high advanced level. When you think of that, you would think that you're close to a native speaker. In reality, I don't think so. I have the certificate that shows my high advanced level, and yet when I do a vocabulary test and compare myself to a university level, university level educated native speaker, like, boy, I'm like halfway there or something like that. I was like, wow, crazy stuff. See some people coming in live. Hello, I see the first like on this video, so thank you. Hope you guys are doing well. Let's see today. We're trying to break a record, by the way, in case you don't know. I'm trying to break a little record. Okay, here's the record, everyone. The record I'm trying to break is I want to get at least one legitimate language learning question in the chat. Okay, so far in all the live streams, there have been spam comments. There have been people who join in. They're like, what is happening? What kind of video is this? What is happening here? Who are you? What are you wearing? Like, strange questions, right? I get those, but there have been zero language learning questions. So today is your time to make history. It is your time to make history on the live. If you're watching live, you can go in and you can actually type a question about language learning, and then you'll get like a crown. I'll give you like a prize for being the first person. It's in like 3 or 4 live streams where it's like no one in the live chat asks questions about language learning. So it's like, let's go. We have 9, 10, what is it? 9 of you here. Wow, 4 likes now. Wow, amazing. 4 likes, 9 people. Thank you. Let's get some language learning questions in the chat. While we wait for anyone, let's see if someone breaks the record today. I'm going to open up Reddit, and we're going to answer some language learning questions from Reddit. Okay, here we go. Come on, I'm waiting, guys. Any language learning question. Could be as simple as like, what's your favorite language? Anything. Give me something. Language learning question in the chat. I'll even take it afterwards in the comments if you're watching a recorded version. Oh my goodness, even give it to me in the comments. I'll even take that. Okay. All right. Oh, I love this question right off the bat. Perfect language learning question. I love this one. There are huge differences in the comprehensibility of native content. Okay, and I'll keep reading. This might be very obvious, but oh my god, this might be obvious, but it does fascinate me how certain native content is so ridiculously easy for me to understand, but then other content by native speakers, other content feels quite far out of my grasp, very difficult. So I'd love to rant on this. Hey, we got one language learning question in the chat from Kyle Austin. Kyle Austin, you are now my favorite human on planet Earth. I'm going to fly to I don't know where you live. I'm flying to your city. I'm buying you a big cake, one chocolate chip cookie, and a nice cap. That's your prize. Let's go. Super excited. Okay. Anyway, I'll answer your question in 1 second, Kyle. No, you know what? Let's do Kyle's questions first. Then we'll go to Reddit. Let's go to Kyle's question. So any advice for learning to conjugate verbs in other languages? Yes, absolutely. Lots of good advice. So the first thing is, I have a lot to say on this topic. Okay, thing number one is I would spend lots of time on reading and listening to content that's at your level. So books, podcasts, blog posts, Reddit, whatever, right? Textbook content, doesn't matter. Read and listen to content that's at your level. That's really, really, really important. If you don't do that, no matter how much you study your conjugations, they're not going to stick. They just won't stick. Okay. The second thing I would say is some what would you call it? Traditional grammar practice, worksheets, conjugation drills, whatever, YouTube videos that walk you through conjugation activities, whatever it is, right? Those can be helpful too. So lots of reading and listening, right, to stuff that's at your level. That's going to be helpful. Some traditional conjugation practice that'll be helpful too. And lastly, I would say speaking practice. So actually talking ideally to native speakers, but at least to yourself, if not. Okay, so I'll give you a couple stories to demonstrate this. So right now I'm learning Ukrainian. Okay, and I've done conjugation drills. I've watched grammar videos. I've done those, and yet it doesn't fully stick in my brain. It somewhat sticks in my brain, somewhat. Okay, it somewhat sticks in the brain, but not like 100%. But what has been helping is listening to content all the time, so that I'm not remembering how to say something because I know the conjugation rule. I'm remembering how to say something because I've heard someone say it and I'm just mimicking what that person said. So I get the conjugation right by accident in a way because I'm just mimicking someone, right? But then also because I have studied the conjugation rule, I do know that I'm mimicking someone, but I understand the grammar behind it while I mimic them. Does that make sense? I'll also say that until I was doing speaking in my Ukrainian, the grammar, I couldn't produce it very well. I could understand it to a degree, but I couldn't produce it very well. So I say, again, in short, 3 big things: some traditional grammar practice, worksheets, textbooks, videos, websites, apps that are grammar focused, some of that. Lots of listening and reading to stuff that's at your level, of course. And then lastly, some speaking. And then if you're just doing that on a regular basis, if you're already doing all that, it's just a matter of time, frankly. It's just a matter of time, I'd say. So as an example, I'm going to pull it up right now on my computer. I'm looking at a student dashboard. So I have a language teaching business. We offer private classes for a wide variety of languages. And all of us students have a student dashboard, okay? Especially the new students. We have a student dashboard, which has like a vocabulary assessment. There's a pronunciation tracker that shows you how good your pronunciation is. That you can see how many hours you've studied. You can see how you spent your study time. You can see like how far until you level up. You can see like how far from your goal. You can set your daily study as daily study goal. You can put it's like a whole bunch. It's very, very comprehensive. Okay, I'm looking at mine right now in Ukrainian. Okay, and I've studied 110 hours and 15 minutes of Ukrainian. Right? Now, here's the thing. According to this estimate that I have here, I'm at least 99.75 hours away from reaching my level goal. So what that means is all of the grammar challenges I have, all the challenges I have will not go away until I've done that 99.75 hours of study. There's no getting around it. No matter what methods I use, like no matter what I do, I'm going to have to put in those 99.75 hours of study. I'm going to have to put in the 99.75 more hours of study. I've done 110.25. I have to put in the 99.75 hours. I have to do that. So I share that because often, probably like 95% of the time, you know what, maybe it's 100. Almost all the time when I get asked language learning questions, there's two parts to the answer. There's the answer to the question, right? There's the answer like, hey, any advice for conjugating in language? There's that advice, yes, right? There's always the direct answer. But the real answer, the thing, the large iceberg underneath the tip of the iceberg, the bulk, the meat of the answer, the most important thing is the number of hours you've studied. So it's the number of hours, because the method itself to fix a problem, it doesn't usually fix the problem instantly. It's usually the hours, putting in the study time usually is what ends up fixing whatever problem you're facing. Now you have to be strategic on how you use the time. It's not just 99.75 hours of any form of study. Like I get it. So you do have to make sure that you know kind of how you're spending your time, but the time is a massive part of the equation. Okay. Hey, let's try and break another record, guys. Let's go for second language learning question in the chat. This is the first time in the chat we have one language learning question. I've got someone typing stuff here. I can't read it. I'm very sorry. I don't speak Arabic. Yeah, let's get one more question from the live chat. Let's do it. You can make it language specific. I speak English, French, Spanish, Mandarin, Gujarati. I've dabbled in others. I'm learning Ukrainian. Like, make language specific if you want, language kind of general if you want. It's up to you. Okay, while we wait for that, let's go to Reddit. So there are huge differences in how understandable native content is. I love this question. So here's something interesting to think about. If you're like, man, why do I understand some content but not other content? I've done some research on this actually, a little bit internally at my business. So, привет, Reese, nice to see you. Anyway, I've done a little bit of research internally on this at the Calgary Language Nerds. So the one big factor as to how understandable something is the speech rate. People talk at different rates of speech. Some people might talk at 175 words a minute. Some people talk at 250 words a minute. Someone who talks at 250 words a minute, for example, it'll be harder to understand them than it will someone who talks at 150 words a minute, obviously, right? The other thing we have to look at is the percentage of new words that are being used. How many of the words that they're using in the video are words that you actually know already? If you don't know the words, you won't understand. Very easy, clear as day, obvious, right? That's second factor. The third factor I look at is something like individual factors. Like if someone has a very low voice or a very high voice, if they talk kind of circularly, like some people don't talk in a direct way, they talk kind of circularly, that makes it harder. So I call them individual factors. So those are kind of the three big ones I look at. And then anything else, you got accent and stuff like that too, but that also becomes an individual factor. So I'd say those are the three big ones I've noticed. So yeah, I love this topic, and it's like super, super interesting. What language is that? I want to Google that before I say it, in case it's some trick question. I get lots of trick questions in the chat, lots of spam and stuff. So let's make sure this is a real thing. Is that a real language? Let's see. Yeah, I don't know what that is. Do you speak? I'm not sure what that is, so no idea. Slavic tongue makes your voice deeper versus Western European accents. Ha, Reese. Okay, thanks, Reese. Yeah, it could be. Yeah, definitely. Like cadence. I've been told like my voice changes a bit in different languages. I've actually noticed other people's voices change too in other languages. Like that's definitely something I've noticed. Yeah, it definitely happens. Like it's pretty interesting. So, Yeah, let's keep doing this Q&A here. Let's keep looking through Reddit and let's answer some more questions. Okay. Uh, I'll answer this one here. It's kind of actually might even answer this person and go type in and answer this one. Actually, I answered something similar last time in the last live stream, but let's do this here. So, learning Spanish as a non-beginner. Any suggestions on good ways to learn Spanish? I'm open to anything: tech school, online classes, books. I took Spanish class for many years as a kid, but I'm out of practice. General vocabulary and verb conjugation still live in my head, but speaking and more complex things are just completely lost. I think it would be really easy to pick it back up. My job requires me to bring a translator with me pretty regularly, and I'm hoping I get to a point where I no longer need one. So a couple things pop in my head. So the very first thing that makes sense to me is just to do an assessment. I think language learners don't do assessments. They don't get assessments done. Now, fair enough. We're like, where do I get an assessment? I get it. You don't know where you get one. Like, that makes sense. But like, let me actually open it so I can get it in front of my face. Let's get this open here. Where is it? Why can't I find it? That's really annoying. Fluency roadmap, measuring fluency. Here we go. Found it. Right. So I actually have, and it's free because it's a late stage draft. I have a fluency self-assessment. Here we go. So there's a Google sheet that takes 60 minutes to fill out to get your pronunciation self-assessment. There's a speech rate assessment, so you can figure out how fast you're talking. There's a vocabulary size assessment, so you can see how many words you know. There's a grammatical accuracy assessment, which is a bit trickier to do, but it's possible. There's a translation reliance assessment. There's like a really in-depth assessment for your level. So one thing that I'm going to try and like fumble with my words here. I'm a big fan of assessment, but I understand why you wouldn't get one done because you're not working with someone who can assess you. So that I get that, but boy, what I love to see an assessment, because you studied it as a kid. Like, what's still in your head? I would love to know. Maybe at a bare minimum, this person has to do a vocabulary assessment just to see what words are still in their head, right? And he says that he's got the verb conjugations. I'd be super curious to do a quick verb conjugation assessment just to see what verbs still live in his head, right? At a bare minimum, I would want to see that, right? So let's go on a bit of a rant here. Like, for language learning, okay, so let's talk about the fitness industry. Okay, in the fitness industry, if you want to get better at something, they use metrics, they use numbers. Like, if someone goes, oh my God, I feel heavy. No one says that. I mean, maybe you say that, but we step on the scale and we know. And not only do we step on the scale and know, we step on the scale and we know, okay, well, we know what water weight, we know what muscle weight, we know what fat weight. We know not only the number, but we know what makes up. We can get a BMI test, for example, right? Like, there's things we can do that give objective criteria to the things we're saying, right? How strong are you? Well, it's like, okay, how much can you bench? How much can you squat? How much can you deadlift? How much can you do on this exercise? How much can you do a hamstring curl? Okay, are you good at running? How fast can you run? How long can you run? We have measurement, right? So if you ask a fitness related question, there's going to be some form of measurement to show you if you're getting better, worse, right, wrong, right? Whether it's numerical, by the way, or non-numerical, it doesn't matter. Sometimes there's non-numerical things we see that exist in the fitness industry. Right? Anyway, I'm going on tangents. The point is, it's so fascinating to me. I've been thinking a lot about this recently, how we don't use measurement in language learning. Like, I want to see a guy, but the first thing I want this person to do is some form of assessment to know where he's at. It's very difficult to say, what should you do when you don't see the assessment? Very difficult, right? Again, I come from the lens of being able to guarantee people become fluent, and you need the assessments that to happen. Okay, enough on assessments. I would say that I'll sound like a broken record. Lots of listening, lots of reading, like tons and tons of listening and reading to stuff that's at your level. looking up words you don't know. That's going to help a lot. And then conversation, even if it's awkward, clunky conversation, right? Lots of conversation, lots of listening, lots of reading. That's it. Like that's it. And then rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat, rinse and repeat. Get assessments, get assessments, get assessments. It's like I wonder if you could literally answer most language learning questions with that. Lots of listening, lots of reading, lots of talking, occasional assessments. That's it. I wonder if that literally, because the assessments tell you assessments are like guardrails. They kind of make sure you stay on track to make sure like you actually are getting better and such. So yeah. Quizzes and tests are needed though, which is hard when self-learning. Yeah, it's true. It's tough. It is tough. I get it. That's another thing you can get me going on a whole rant on that too. This is like a very fascinating thing. I've just been thinking about this, like raw thoughts, okay? Raw, unfiltered thoughts I've been thinking about. A part of me thinks it's quite hilarious that we self-teach languages. I think it's quite hilarious. We can do it. Of course we can do it. People have done it. People do it. I'm not saying it's a bad thing or anything like that. I think it's funny that arguably, the default way that people think about learning languages is to self-study and teach themselves. That's arguably the default way that people go about learning languages. And it's so comical because we need other people to use languages. Whether we're listening to people talk in languages, whether we talk to people, like languages is not a solitary task. It is something that involves other people. And yet we think we're going to teach ourselves, which is quite interesting. Now, we can teach ourselves. Like I'm teaching myself Ukrainian right now. But it is interesting that the default way of thinking, if you had said, hey, I'm going to learn martial art, the default way of thinking is not that you're going to teach yourself a martial art. The default way of thinking is, well, I'm going to go to the gym, the dojo, and like they'll teach me, and then I'll practice with like a real person. It's really quite fascinating to me, right? The default, when I learned to swim, like I guess you could teach yourself to swim actually, but anyway, like it's interesting that for martial arts, for example, which obviously require another person because you defend yourself against another person. It's like so self-explanatory. I don't think that people think they're going to learn martial arts at home. They can practice at home, maybe, but they have to do it against someone, with someone. And with language, it's so interesting that people think that, again, they can learn by themselves. I'm not saying you can't, but it's so interesting that people don't involve other people in their language learning journey. They do it on their own, which is like, what a weird, like, how did that happen? How did that psychologically, like, how does that make sense to us? How did that happen? Was it like, it's so interesting. It's very interesting. Let me read the comments here. Same goes for music. I guess it's pretty much normal to have a teacher for a specific instrument, but yeah, good point. Yeah, it's fascinating, man. Again, you can teach yourself a language, and I am doing it. People have done it. Like, obviously, yes, right? But it's just interesting that that's the default. It's one default way of thinking when I would think, like I used to think, frankly, actually, this is interesting. My default way of thinking for language is to go sign up for a class, like find a private tutor or a group class and go sign up. That's like my default. My first thought is like, oh, I better sign up for something like a class or a course. That's always my first thought. Why? Because you're learning a language. You have to interact with other people, right? Now, do I always do that? No, but it's always one of my first thoughts. So, all right, let's see. Let's do some more. I love the live chat today. For the first time in all these live streams, we actually have some real language learning, language related comments. I'm thrilled. Very, very happy about this. Okay. Cool. Music, vloggers, video games. Nice, man. Very cool. Switch the language of the games. Nice. Very, very cool. Okay. Here we go. Let's do this one. I actually like this question in a way. I have a funny answer to it though. So this person says, if inner French is slightly too difficult for me to enjoy, inner French is like I actually don't know what it is, but I'm assuming it's a podcast I must say a podcast. If inner French is slightly too difficult for me to enjoy, what podcast would you recommend I listen to until I work my way up to inner French? And the person adds that the earlier podcasts of inner French are a little dry to me, and the newer episodes seem more interesting, but I do struggle a little more than I'd like. I can get the gist if I read the transcript, but I'd like to focus on audio and enjoying the comprehensible input. I actually have a lot to say on this. First of all, do I think this? I'm going to say this. I don't know if I believe this or not. I'm going to say it, though. I might not believe this, but I'm still going to say it. I think that people think comprehensible input, and maybe this is what I want to Google this. Let's Google this right now. I want to figure out if what I'm thinking is actually true. I'm going to Google what is comprehensible input. Comprehensible input. What is comprehensible input? Okay. Comprehensible input refers to language input, interesting, that is slightly above a learner's current level of understanding, but still mostly understandable. Okay, I see. So it's above your current level, but mostly, whoa, crazy lightning outside. Anyway, got a big lightning outside my house right now. Anyway, so it's basically, okay, so it's above your level, but mostly understandable. Okay, I would agree with that. Now, I'm still gonna make my. I'm gonna keep reading this actually. Okay, I'm gonna speak off the cuff. So I've been thinking a lot about this, and I think that what people think is that, okay, you find this content that's at your level, slightly above your level, interesting, you understand most of it. There's some stuff you don't. And you just focus on listening, and you're going to magically learn. Not magically, sorry. That makes it seem like I don't believe it. And you're going to learn the other words. Like you're going to learn the words that you don't understand. Okay. My brain thinks like this. And I could be wrong. This is just top of mind thoughts. I think perhaps what it really is you find content at your level. So that means you understand the bulk of it, right? Without looking stuff up. But then when you do see words you don't know, I think you should look it up. Yeah, look it up. Now, do you have to like study it and be like, ooh, that word, let me like, get in my brain. No, just look it up. So you kind of like, oh, okay, that's what that means. Okay, cool. Then you get the sentence and move on. I've been thinking a lot about that. I'm only thinking about it because of how I'm learning Ukrainian right now. When I'm learning Ukrainian, right? There's like words I don't know all the time. I'm like, oh, what's that word? And I'll like look it up. Oh, cool. And then I'll keep listening. But I think this concept of, intuitively, I feel like the concept of just finding something that's just the right level to listen to passively, I don't know. Something's not, maybe it's right in theory. Maybe, I'm sure it works. But all I can say is I read a lot of language learning questions, comments. This is all I do in my life. Like, it's all I do is think about language learning and talk to language learners. And somehow there's something wrong with how people are applying this. Okay, here's a way to put it. So I'm fumbling, but hopefully we'll get to the thing here. Okay. How's my battery doing? Hopefully this is not dead yet. It's something like, okay, I'll tell you a story. At the Calgary Language Nerds, my business, the business I run, what I found is, if the solution to a problem that we come up with for language learners, if the solution to a problem is not plug and play, it's not a good solution. It's probably not a good solution. If it's not something I can just tell you in like a sentence or two, and like, oh, just go do this, and you can say, okay, and then just go do it, the solution is not good enough. It's not a good enough solution. I'll give you an example. Like something like I had, for example, what's something that we recently fixed that was like, maybe like, there's so many examples of this. Yeah, here's one. How we do assessments. Okay. The assessment procedure I used to have was so difficult. It was so hard for tutors to do. It was really hard. And like, it wasn't getting, it was really tough, right? So I had to, it's still actually, frankly, I'm not 100% satisfied with it, to be honest, but it's better than it used to be. It's much, much, much better. And it's much more doable because it's simplified, right? Or even like, man, there must be a good example. Nah, there must be a good example that I have. Let me think. What's a good example? Actually, here's a good example. Speech rate, right? Speech rate is a good example. Hello, Harpreet. Nice to see you. It's a language learning YouTube channel. Language learning. Yes, that's what we're talking about, languages. Here's a perfect example. Speech rate. This took me forever to understand. Speech rate, the number of words per minute that you say, is a very good measure of how fluent your speech is, like how connected, how fluent it is. It's a very good measure of that. It's not perfect because you can just say random words that don't mean anything, so there's that, but it's a very good rough measure. It took me years to figure that out, to just articulate that to you in a way where you go, oh, that makes sense. I say more words, I'm more fluent. I say fewer words, I'm less fluent. Yeah, that kind of makes sense, roughly speaking. Yeah, there's exceptions. Some people talk faster, some people talk slower. Yeah, fair enough, of course, right? But it's a very rough measure. It's amazing. It's great. And it's very easy for anyone to understand that. If I say comprehension rate, how fast can someone else talk and you understand? In other words, how many words per minute can they use and you understand? You hear me say that and you say, oh, that makes sense. Yeah, I can get that. To come up with that concept, those words, and to explain it in that such a concise way where it makes sense, took me forever. It took me ages. Or even something like, I'll pull up another example. If we look at like grammatical accuracy, how many words did you say? How many words were right? You said 100 words, 90 words were right, 90% accuracy. It's an easy concept for us to grasp. It's very straightforward to grasp that concept, okay? When it comes to comprehensible input, when I talk to language learners, the feeling I get is that it's not simple enough to grasp and execute on. It's not simple enough to grasp and just do. There's something missing in a way. It's not simple enough. Hasn't been simplified enough. So even the term comprehensible input, what does that mean? You know how long it took me in this whole language learning world? Reese, I'll answer that question in 1 second. Like even me, when I first heard, like, do you know how long it took to understand what comprehensible input meant? Even today, I had to go Google it to make sure I had the right understanding. Comprehensible input is not a good term for it. It's not intuitive. It's not comprehensible. Okay, what is that? Understandable. Okay, input. What is input? Like there's too many jumps that your brain is doing, right? So that already right off, it's too difficult to grasp and implement. And I think so. One thing I've noticed, and I've talked about this for 2 years now, and I'll keep talking about it. You know, language. Perhaps the biggest flaw that I see anyway in the language learning industry, with teachers, with students, with everyone, the biggest flaw that I see is that success rates are ridiculously low. The success rate is abysmal. It's awful. If you take a tutor or a teacher and you look at all the students they've taught, and you look at how many of them even remotely get close to fluency, how many get remotely close to the level of fluency that the student wanted? It's very low. It's like it's like 1% or something. It's not very many. If you look at the number of people who try to learn a language and reach the level of fluency they wanted, it's very low. It's very, 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 very low. And it doesn't have to be. I don't think it has to be, because we have other aspects of life where people try and do something and they have a high degree of success, high probability of success. I'll give you an example. By the way, Reese, I will get to your question. Just 1 second. Like we look at colleges. I believe the graduation rate I think this is the US. In the US, the average graduation rate of a college is 67%, something like that. It's not the best, but it's not terrible. And it's actually higher than that. The number is skewed because almost all the dropouts happen in the first year. So if you make it past the first year and you get into your second year and you keep going, you have very, very, very high graduation rates. If you look at, I think it was the Cambridge English exams. I believe it was Cambridge. I'm pretty sure that if you looked at the number I looked at it online once, the number of people that signed up for the exam prep and then the number of people who passed the exam, I think it's like 96% or something. Like it's a really, 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 really high number, something ridiculously high. And, look at the number of people who try to learn to drive and then successfully learn to drive, very high. Like now, and I understand maybe language is more complicated. Maybe driving is an easier skill. Maybe, who knows? Like, I don't know. But like, I get it. I can't just make these apple to orange comparisons. But the fact that almost no one like legitimately almost no one, becomes even remotely close to how fluent they want to get is like a problematic to me. And again, one reason this happens is because we need easy plug and play solutions to things. Plug and play. Plug, like, do this, it works. Do this, it works. And I don't think we've done a good enough job of having these plug and play solutions. The plug and play solutions we have now, well, okay, let me actually answer Reese's question quickly, then we'll do the plug and play solutions. So Reese, for example, what is the average talking speed of a fluent English speaker? I believe it's 150 words a minute. Let me see here. I think it's for English is 150. Average, I think it's 150. Speech rate, English. It also depends on the medium. Yeah, just an AI response. The average English speaker talks at a rate of 120 to 150 words per minute. Another one here, 150, 150, 160, 190. It's like 150-ish, basically, ish. And then it'll vary, obviously. And then in languages, it varies too. So like, some languages, they do tend to have more than others, but roughly 150. The rubric that I use at the Calgary Language Nerds is basically after 100. Like 100 is probably still slower than most native speakers, irrespective of the language. But after 100, it becomes subjective. If you already have 100 words per minute as your speech rate, that's the rubric we use. If you have 100, you can go faster if you want. You can keep it 100. Like, it's kind of up to you. Frankly, even lower than 100, if you're very happy with your speech rate, we're kind of happy to leave it there. But we don't really 100. Like, if you talk faster, up until 100 words per minute, talking faster is good, quote unquote. It starts to sound more and more natural, provided you're articulate, saying things that are intelligent, etc., etc. But roughly speaking, yeah, that does make you a bit more natural. But after 100, we leave it up to the student. Like, actually, what I tend to do is I look at we'll tend to look at, like, what is their English speech or their first language speech rate. We'll look at that and say, okay, what's your speech rate in English or your first language? And that serves as some kind of a benchmark. Like, one person literally just yesterday, 3 days ago, she did a little speech rate thing, and she had, I think it was, let me actually check, I can pull it up. Her English speech rate was 130 words per minute, but her Spanish speech rate was 54. Now, so it kind of shows a really big discrepancy. So for her to, like, she was wondering, maybe I'm just a slow talker and 54 words per minute is what I do in English. She was legitimately wondering. So we checked, and she's like, oh, I'm like more than double that in English. Okay, so I can improve at least a little bit in my Spanish. So anyway, plug and play solutions. So if you want to really become fluent, we have a couple of plug and play solutions. One of them, they're just really expensive. That's the only issue. They're just expensive or inaccessible. One of them is you pay for an intensive course. You go for a year somewhere, pay for 40 hours a week of classes, and off you go. Like, semester abroad type thing, right? Like, that works very reliably, tends to work like pretty darn well. Very expensive, very big sacrifice time-wise, but tends to work at least reasonably well. There are some programs that are not accessible to the public that seem to work really well. I've met a lot of Mormons that do their mission trips, and like they come back and they're like hyper fluent in whatever language because they had really intensive training. So you could convert. You could go convert. Like, a lot of governments have really good programs. I once talked to someone from the Defense Language Institute in the U.S. Seems like they have a good program, from what I can tell. Theirs seems to work quite well. So there's that. It's like intensive programs. Non-publicly accessible programs are definitely there, where you have to join some organization and they will train you, right? And there's always those. My program seems to do it as well, but it's early. We're really early in my program, so I would let's fast forward 5 years and I'll have way more data and I can really say. But from what I can tell so far, like, my program really works. But even mine, it's like not like what I would love. Is it even possible? It's probably possible. What I would love, but what doesn't exist, is like, well, I guess it kind of exists. let's just say this. We need more plug and play solutions. Let's just say that. We have some intensive classes. We have some closed door classes like the Mormon church and things like that, right? We have like my business, which is really focused on creating a plug and play solution, which so far like, hey, just do this, like just sign up and like, you're going to be good to go. Like you're going to make it, right? Just follow the program. You're going to make it, right? We need more of that. And there's just not enough of that, I think. Intensive classes, we have those. There's not enough. I think my business is one of a kind. I don't think anything exists like mine. I don't think so. I don't think there's anything on the market, I think, that's like mine, where I go, look, follow the program. It's part-time. You'll become fluent. You will level up in a year. You're a beginner now, you'll be intermediate in a year. If you're intermediate now, you should be advanced in a year. Like, it provides a 1-year part-time track, which is very reasonable, right? Very, very reasonable. It's not like 3 months, right? It's a very reasonable promise, I think. Very reasonable time commitment for you. We need more of that, right? And I have the extra fluency guarantee, so I actually give additional free classes if you follow the program and it doesn't work, right? So I have that too. I have that additional guarantee, but even if another company doesn't have that, like just to have more, why don't we have more of those? I don't really get it. Why don't we have more of it? I don't actually know. I really don't know. I don't know. Well, I guess I do know, I suppose. It's taken me 2 years to figure it out, so maybe it's just really hard. Like, I don't know. You'd think someone else would have taken the time to figure it out, though. All right. Maybe there's someone like me, though, some other person that's doing a live stream for 2 people that also has figured it out. So it's a really small channel. That's why they don't know. That's why you don't know about them. It's possible. All right, let's do one more question here that we can piece out. Let's actually do, let's talk about Reese's question in the chat. Why not? Instead of Reddit. I'm worried with AI. You speak to it and it talks back with the conversation and text below. They can be designed to help us with things like perpetual learning. Let's talk about AI and language learning. I mean, I don't really know where that's going to go, and no one really knows where it's going to go. I will say this though, like, here's some of the thoughts I have on AI and language learning, just like top of mind thoughts. Once upon a time, we all rode horses. Once upon a time, that's how we got around. Horses. We rode horses. Horses. Okay? Now, you don't take the horse to the movie theater. There's nowhere to like leave your horse outside the movie theater and go watch a movie. Like you take your car, you take the bus, you take the train, right? Maybe you walk. But horses are not how we get around. But people still ride horses. We still have horse riding culture. Another example. We have automatic cars, right? So, like the automatic car, right? And standard cars are now not as common. But I still can drive a standard car. People still can drive standard cars, even though they're not popular. What's another example? Here's a good example. I love this one. We have calculators. This is actually maybe the best example. We have calculators, right? They do math for us, like Excel spreadsheets and stuff, right? They do math for us. Guess what? There are still people on Earth that can do excellent math in their head. My grandpa's one of them. He's like a wizard in his head, right? Wizard with math. So what am I saying? Like, I don't know if there's going to be an AI that makes it unnecessary to learn languages. Maybe. Probably, if I had to guess. Like, I would not be shocked if in 3 years, maybe less, I'm on Zoom, I talk to you in English, you hear me in Spanish, you talk to me in Spanish, I hear you in English. Like, that wouldn't, over Zoom or something, I would not be shocked. Like, not in the slightest would I be surprised. Okay? But some people will still, something will happen with language. Like, I don't know where it'll go, but people will still do, like, I'll still do it. I'll still do it. In fact, as I think about it, let's fast forward like 40 years in the future. No one learns languages anymore because we got these like implants in our brain, whatever. But then there's me, 70-year-old wacko Azren that speaks like 12 languages, and like, whoa, that guy doesn't even need the microchip. Whoa, he just opens his mouth and can do it. Wow. Like my grandpa can do math in his head. And we're all like, whoa, my grandpa can do math in his head. Oh my God, he doesn't need a calculator ever for anything. He'll do it all in his head. It's like, whoa, human calculator. And we're all like wildly impressed with him, right? And so I still think like there's a wild, like at a minimum, if no one's learning languages, people people like us will just be wildly impressive to the rest of the human species at a bare minimum. So I think that's quite hilarious. And I look forward, if that's the world we live in, I cannot wait to walk up to someone and be like, hola, ¿cómo estás? ¿Qué tal? You know, bonjour, ça va bien? Привет, jak sprawy? And talk to them whatever language they speak, like game troll, right? Whatever. And be like, dude, that guy's talking. He doesn't have the chip in his head and he's just talking. Wow, that's so cool. So anyway, cool. Let's wrap it up here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. Hope you guys liked that video. We had the best live stream ever. We actual real, meaningful, proper comments today. We didn't have a bunch of like spam today, not a ton, so that's great. And lots of likes, so I like that too. And yeah, anything else you want to say? Yeah, if you know anyone who wants to learn a language, by the way, I'd love a referral. Like send it to my website. I'd love to. I'm looking for some more students right now. Yeah, so if you know someone like serious about becoming fluent, like my program leads fluency, so it's like a plug and play solution, and not like crazy. It's not crazy expensive. Like it's not the cheapest thing on the market, but like it's not like $50,000 and crazy like that. So anyway, if you know anyone, send them my way. I'd appreciate the referral. And yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.